everybody. Yeah, this is another behind the scenes video, but, well, in case you hadn't noticed, we've turned the comments back on 10, and also on the rest of the Transport Evolved family of videos. And you've all been busy in the comments, so yeah, let's go there and let's answer some of your comments, queries and concerns. Yay! In case you're wondering, I'm standing in front of the green screen that I use for TEN, Transport Evolved News. And while a lot of people do call TEN the channel's name is Transport Evolved, and TEN, or Transport Evolved News, is just one of a series of different videos that we make. I didn't realise until recently, but some people only see the News Roundup show because of the way that YouTube is being YouTube. More on that later on in this video, but first some obvious stuff. First, this is unscripted. I do have a list of talking points to go through with you, but I also wanted to show you some behind the scenes stuff. So when I started this video, you may have seen me come in and turn on some lights. There's actually 6 lights right now on me. There's one there, one there, there's one there, one there, and then there's a couple down there, because when we're doing 10, or if I click my fingers, this is what the set looks like for 10, that requires some pretty intense light to make sure that my green screen keying is passable. If I do this, we're back in the main studio. I'm afraid I'm not going to do CGI and all that stuff today. You're just going to have to deal with the backdrop as it is. And if you're curious where we film the, well, I'm sitting in front of a camera and I'm sitting in a chair and you have the light and the computer behind me, it's literally over there. I could probably touch it if I leaned a little bit more. This studio is actually the largest room in my house, upstairs at least. It's the spare room that used to be a craft room and a guest room, and then after COVID hit, we turned it into the Transport Evolved filming studio, and there's basically racks of camera gear here and over there, and it looks a mess, but it looks half decent on camera. Anyway, enough of the behind the scenes stuff. First up, I want to give you some eternal gratitude for your kind words, from most of you at least, about the Chevrolet Bolt EV event that took place last week in LA. We had a great time. It was a 2-day drive down. We were there for about a day and a half, and then we drove back. So we left on Monday and we got back on Friday. It was about 1,900 miles all in. Yes, I drove there. I drove there in my wife's 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV, and there is going to be a road trip video, in fact, a 2-part road trip video coming on the channel at some point in the future, discussing our trip and how the trip went, because it was honestly the easiest and best long-distance EV road trip I think I've made, possibly ever, but certainly in a really long time. But some of you were a little grouchy in the video, in the comments for that video, about things that we did or said while we were filming. So I want to just kind of lift up the curtain and tell you a little bit about the time frames involved and what we had to do. So as I said, we left on Monday. We arrived in Sacramento on Monday evening, and GM paid for us to have a hotel in Sacramento. Then we left the hotel in Sacramento on Tuesday morning and drove all the way to LA. GM paid for our hotel in LA. Tuesday night, GM took those of us who were there out for a meal, and then Wednesday was the actual reveal event for the Bolt EV. That event, I think, probably started about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were there for a couple of hours. I was lucky enough to be in the list of people that got to go first behind the wheel of the Bolt EV, and we had a short drive. Because we were on the NBC Universal backlot, there was pretty strict controls over where we could film and what we could film. Not from GM's side, but from NBC Universal, because obviously they were filming TV series while we were there. So, like, some of the buildings where they have sets and whatnot were actively in use. It had been a busy filming day on the set, and so we weren't allowed to film much of the drive, which is why you don't see a lot of drive footage. The other thing that I want to really reiterate is that when we did that little tour around the backlot, there were 3 different places that we could stop that were scheduled for us to be able to film. And I think we were given like between 5 and 7 minutes at each location. So by the time everyone had got out the car, everyone had checked the audio, and obviously the camera was rolling, I literally had 1 take for each of those locations. And what you see in that video is pretty much the 1 take that I did. I think there was maybe a little bit of editing in post to remove, I think I said a couple of things that we removed. But when it comes to me in the car with the engineer who was in the passenger seat and me saying, find me a coffee, a lot of people were very upset about that, and said that I was basically being the stupid one and that no system would be able to understand find me a coffee and I should learn proper English. I want to remind you that English is an evolving language, as are all languages, and different people use that language in a different way. I'm from the UK, my mum is Canadian, I have a very mixed language use. It's somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, to be fair. And I'm also someone who is ADHD, probably autistic as well, and so my language choice is sometimes a bit skew-if, and I sometimes say things that my brain doesn't actually command me to say. So my brain will say this, and then my mouth says something else. And find me a coffee was what came out. Now, I do use that phrase some of the time. I use that with my smartphone. I have an Apple iPhone, and when we got back and when people were upset about my choice of language, I actually said to Siri, hey Siri, find me a coffee. And my phone promptly listed all of the local coffee shops in the area. So I know it works. It's the phrase I use when I'm driving around here and I want to grab a coffee, or when I'm somewhere that I don't know and I want to grab a coffee. For those who were complaining about it and saying that I wasn't being fair to Google, I just want to remind you that the job of a language, an AI assistant, is to be able to infer meaning. And if that system cannot infer that I want a coffee from me saying, find me a coffee, maybe the system needs a little bit of TLC. Well, I don't know. The next thing I want to bring up, again, people upset about us filming TEN, Transport Evolved News, on the road last week. A couple of you were like, I liked the old setup better. And in which case I think you mean when I stand here and I film in front of the camera and I've got a really high quality microphone there and it's a really nice camera and the lighting's perfect. And I'm all dressed up and we've got a proper set and there's all of that stuff. That set is virtual. But this bit behind me, the green screen, is very difficult to replicate on the road. And we were driving back from the Bolt event, so we had to choose. Do we make an episode of 10 on the road, in which case it's a little bit freer and I'm just talking to the camera and ad-libbing based on what I know from the news of the week? Or do we say we're not going to the Bolt event, in which case we wouldn't have gone and you wouldn't have seen that video? Or we're not going to make a 10? In which case you wouldn't have got a roundup. And there are many people in the comments, it's not just about 10, it's about other videos, who are holding the team here at the channel to impossible standards. We are a tiny outfit. As I've said multiple times, it's myself as the main presenter. I'm the owner of the company. Kate Walton-Elliott, she's the other presenter. She does 2 days a week. Then there's Erin, our animator and artist, and she spends most of our time doing animations and thumbnails. And then there's Vi, our videographer, who does operate the camera and does all of the editing and colouring. Now, when we're in the studio, I can edit and colour without Vi because we've already got presets for all of this stuff. But I have to lean quite heavily on Vi when we're out and about. And Vi was with me on that event. And that was our choice, to do a 10 on the road at the charging station. We combined charging with filming. I had been driving for, I think, 3 hours by that point, maybe 4 hours. And we had to pick, do we just do the video and push it out the door with minimal B-roll, or do we just do something else? Many people were like, blah, 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 it's too wordy, you're too verbose, you're just, you're gabbing off and not saying anything. I'm sorry, again, there was no time for me to write a script. I'm doing the same thing now, so I'm guessing that those people who had problems with 10 also probably going to have a problem with this. But I want to remind you that we are a small company, we are a small channel, and we don't have a massive budget. And if you want us to be able to have a massive budget, then go and sign up in Patreon. If you sign up before the end of this month, you'll also get a free piece of digital art that Erin has worked on, which I think is fantastic. Somebody will complain about it because they always do. That's the way of the internet. And I'm not going to worry about that. But, if you want us to have more money to be able to do more stuff, pay us, because most of you don't. About 1% of the people who watch the channel actually pony up and financially support us, and that's wonderful, but we would need about 3 or 4 times that financial support in order to have a team large enough so that if one of us was invited to an event, somebody else could stay behind because we'd have a larger staff and we could do multiple things. Right now, we do the best we can, and you can like it or lump it, as my wonderful sister likes to say. All right, moving forwards, I talked about how little time we had on the LA trip, and I haven't mentioned yet, but I'm going to. The video that we filmed on Wednesday was edited in the car by Vi on Thursday as I drove back. So I did all the driving and Vi sat in the passenger seat editing the video. The previous night, on Wednesday night, when we got back from the event, we stayed up late. We edited the audio. I went to bed about 11 o'clock. I think Vi probably went to bed about midnight. And the next morning I woke up at 5 a.m. and I went to the gym. Then I got in the car and we drove back and Vi edited the video. And on Thursday evening, when we got back to the hotel, I edited the video from the 10 that we had recorded that day. Vi coloured the first drive or the reveal video for the Bolt EV and did the montage so that then on Friday we could drive back. Vi coloured 10. When we got back to Portland, we offloaded everything at the studio, and then Monday we both did final checks on the Bolt video and pushed that out live on Monday ahead of schedule because it was a really important video and we wanted you to see it. So that's how little time we had and how few people were working on that video. And that takes me to IAA in Munich, and many people were really upset about the coverage from IAA in Munich. And without getting too far into the weeds, I want to let you know we were invited to IAA Munich by CATL about a month before it happened, but for various reasons we didn't actually get anything finalised until the week before, at which point CATL said, we can't book you the flights and the hotel, you're going to have to do it and we'll reimburse you. So we did that. I put it on my company credit card. The total cost is about $7,000 to fly myself and Vi out and to have a hotel and to pay for meals and transportation while we were there. Now, we're still waiting for the reimbursement. CATL hasn't paid yet. It is late in its payment. I'm not telling you that to shame CATL. There was a holiday in China and payments are being held up for various reasons. I suspect politics come into that. But we could only afford to be there for a couple of days. Now, Liv and Patrick from the Electric Duo, they were also there. They were able to stay a little bit longer than we were, so they had a little bit more time on the show floor. But we left on Friday from Portland, arrived on Saturday early in the morning in the Netherlands, then flew over to Germany. We arrived in Munich late morning, early afternoon, went to the hotel, crashed, woke up on Sunday, went to the reveal event for the CATL Shenzhen Pro battery, filmed there, got back to the hotel pretty late. Then on Monday, we went to the actual show and we were at the at the CATL stand to film some more with Shenzhen Pro in the morning. And then the rest of the day we had to ourselves and we just tried to get as many videos in as we possibly could because on Tuesday we flew back to the US. Again, in an ideal world, if we had oodles and gobs of money, again, support us on Patreon if you want us to be at events longer, we would have stayed longer and we would have filmed more. But we did what we could and we did the best we could in the environment we had. We travelled very light. We only took a couple of audio recorders. We took the Zoom F2s that we use when we're doing Chicken and Garden and a couple of other videos when it's just me or one other person. We normally use wireless radio mic packs when there are multiple people on camera at once, and then we record it in a multi-track recorder. It's actually the recorder that I'm talking to you on right now. That normally gives us better sound quality. But because of the constraints of travelling internationally, because of the constraints and concerns about flying to Germany and then flying back to the US, we kept things really simple and really easy. Vi can't handle audio and video at the same time when there are constraints on our time, especially at an auto show when people are jostling each other to gain access to cars and when automakers don't want to give us access to cars on stands. So we recorded everything with the Zooms, and at the end of the day, that BMW video, our audio equipment failed, and it was right at the end of the day. We couldn't go back and film it again, and we had to make a choice. Do we just forget about that BMW video, or do we dub over it? And the iX3 was such an important vehicle that we decided we were going to push it, and we were going to put subtitles over the mini John Cooper Works Deus Ex crossover. A lot of you were very upset about that. A lot of you said, well, if you were serious journalists, you would have spare equipment and maybe you'd have multiple microphones or multiple packs and someone would have been monitoring. Yeah, in an ideal world, you're totally right. We would have done that. But we're a small team and we were already carrying a lot of gear, and there was no practical way for us to do that in that location in that way. I also want to let you know that on the BMW stand, BMW did not want us there filming at all. BMW and a couple of other car companies at the event were very strict about who could gain access to the car and for how long. And we basically had to war film it, right? So we had to go around with the cameras and try and grab a shot here and there and try and not get in anybody's way who had been approved to film on the stand. We were kind of going in and out. We weren't allowed anywhere near the iX3 because BMW was only allowing people who were approved media in front of the iX3, and we weren't on that list. And at the end of the day, we were tired, the equipment failed, and we had to make a choice in post as to what we were going to do. Now, I could have done automated dialogue replacement. That is where I watch the video of me talking, and then I say what I said in the video in the studio in front of a microphone, and then we dub it over, add some background noise, and you may not have been any the wiser that it was filmed remotely instead of on location. The problem with that is it's very time intensive. It's quite expensive to do because of the amount of time that you need to spend to do it, to get it right. And if it's done badly, it's blatantly obvious. In an ideal world, if I had had time to spend and pick up a lot of B-roll, which is our gold standard, it's what we try and do all the time, then we could have just done voiceover over the top of that in the studio and it would have been great, because you wouldn't have seen me moving my mouth on screen and I would have just narrated a bit of dialogue over the top. And in fact, the Bolt EV reveal video that we published earlier this week, that actually had just a little tiny soupçon of that in it, because I forgot to mention the power to the home and power to grid capabilities of the new Bolt. So when we got back, I came into the studio, I recorded that little segment, I added background noise that was recorded at the event, combined it. You can probably tell, I can tell that it was recorded slightly differently, but then I can tell when I'm listening to audiobooks when there are slight differences between the narrator's takes. So I'm just a bit of a weirdo like that. But that video had a little bit of that in because we had B-roll that we could fit into the gap. When it came to that BMW stand, there was just no chance for us to get enough B-roll to fill that gap. And that's why we did what we did. I want you to let me know in the comments below if that's something you don't want us to do again. If we have a failure on set, do we just forget it, pretend we weren't there? Or do we just go ahead and do what we did, which was do subtitles, and then when the audio was recoverable, add some AI tools to try and clean it up as best we could. If I offended you, if we upset you by using those tools and that equipment, I'm sorry. We'll do better in the future. Now to the Mercedes-Benz stand, also at IAA in Munich. I want to acknowledge that On that particular stand, we had a similar issue to BMW. It was very busy. We couldn't get access cleanly to the vehicles. And as we were preparing to film, I struck up a conversation with a chap standing near the the concept AMG GT XX. And I was explaining to Vi all about it, and the engineer, that's who he was like, hey, you know a lot about this. And we started talking, and he was really nice, really informative, really personable. And about 5 minutes into our nerding out, I said, hey, would you mind if we turn the cameras on and talk to you on camera? And he said, I would love to, but I need to get sign off from my PR person. He went and talked to his PR person at Mercedes, and Mercedes said no. So that interview did not happen, and that's a shame because it would have been the best interview, I personally think, of the whole event. Now, to CATL and to the interviews we did there. Some of you were upset about those interviews. You said it felt forced, like I was asking set questions. I want to clear up that my questions were my questions. I asked the questions I wanted to ask. There was no pre-approval. However, I was talking to someone for whom English was not a first language, and they clearly had their talking points. And I can't force someone who has their own agenda as to what they want to say on camera to change and answer my questions if they don't, and there is a very limited amount of time. And again, we literally had about as long as those interviews are to film and ask questions. We didn't get a chance to retake. And so I could steer the conversation as best I could, but the engineers clearly had talking points that they were expected to talk on. That is not on me. That is on the company. And so we did our best there as well. Next, I know, lots of feedback, lots of comments. I want to touch base, and I also want to, by the way, remind you that we've got one more video from IAA coming next week. It's an interview with the team at Rimac Technologies, and that video is the kind of video that I want to make more of because it was an authentic, unconstrained interview. I had a great time. I think they did too, and I think you'll enjoy watching it. It's going to be slightly longer, but hey, you don't come here for short videos. Let's move over a little bit more to questions of why we do things the way we do things and why we are not like X, Y, or Z. A lot of people have been commenting lately that we are being too political in our commentary and we need to be fairer and less political. And I just want to remind everyone that politics is everywhere. Politics influences everything that happens. And right now, as a queer and trans-owned company on YouTube, we are targets. If you haven't watched Fran Lab and her discussion of some of the targeting and how that's impacting view counts for trans creators, go watch it because it's an excellent video and it kind of epitomizes where we're at right now. I know other trans and queer creators and we're all suffering the same thing. View counts are going down, people are being unsubscribed. I have talked about it ad infinitum on this channel, and our ad revenue is going down too. That is hardly surprising given that there was a political donation made recently by YouTube to President Trump's fund for the library, I think it was, either for the library or for the ballroom at the White House. And he has threatened YouTube with legal action over the way it responded to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And so YouTube, just like other big tech companies, are basically bending the knee and they are quietly silencing voices whose identities do not fall in line with those of the current White House administration. Unfortunately, I and the rest of the team fall into that category in various ways. And so, you know, if we're already being silenced, it's important for us to let people know that we're being silenced because a lot of people will watch us and not understand and not see. And if we pretend that other people's points of view and other people's existences are not valid, then we become part of the problem instead of saying, hey, we exist, we're here, we are vibrant, I hope, a vibrant example of of authenticity that a lot of channels don't achieve, and we try really hard to do that. But when it comes to politics too, look, my job is, I said this in a video recently, and I'm not going to swear this time, but our job is not to tell you what somebody said. Our job is to examine what that person said and to translate that into real tangible terms. And if someone in a governmental position, for example, is calling wind and solar a load of whatever and saying it doesn't work, we know that's not true. And so it's our job to go, hey, they're not telling the truth. They're being disingenuous. And yeah, I know sometimes people get very upset because we lean to the left politically, all of us at the channel. We try and stay as close to the actual facts as possible. Now, I know a bunch of people are going to come into the comments and give me their facts, but very often the counterfacts or alternative facts, as the certain political groups like to say, are very often not backed by scientific data, and we try and stick to scientific data where possible. So that's why we do what we do. It's why we involve politics, and we also want you as an audience to be informed, because if you're informed, you make smarter decisions, both when you spend your own money, but also when you go into the ballot box and cast your vote into the booth. I mean, you don't get into the box. That would be kind of, unless you're someone who's very small or a cat, in which case, meow. Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. We're going to try and keep the comments back on. If people come back and start to do what they did previously, which is dox us, try and share information about my family or other people in the team's family, we are going to ban you, and we're going to turn off comments. We turned off comments because YouTube's ban feature was not working for us, and we have a suspicion that someone at YouTube or someone with access was going in and removing deletions for stuff that we'd made, and therefore, the people that we had banned just kept coming back, and it was causing a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and taking up a lot of our time. So if the comments stay clean, great, we'll keep them on. If not, then we might have to bring them back to closing them for a while. But we're always going to try and make sure that people have a chance to speak. So join our Discord. Say hello to us on Blue Sky or Mastodon. We do take a while sometimes to respond on Blue Sky, but we do our best. And there are other ways to reach out and talk to us too. Be genuine, listen, engage other people, even if their opinions are different from you. And hopefully we can make the world a better place, even when things are pretty nasty right now. So if you've watched, thanks for watching. And Normal Service will be back very soon with some great videos lined up next week. Kate's got a great video. I've got that interview with Rumat. And of course, we have 10 later this week. Take care. Thanks for watching us today. You can connect with us on Patreon, Discord, Mastodon, Blue Sky, or through our website. Huge thanks to the amazing folks scrolling by right now. You're the reason we can stay independent and keep making content without corporate influence. And right now is a perfect time to join. Through September and October, we're running our autumn Patreon drive. Sign up and you'll not only support the channel, but you'll also get an exclusive piece of digital art from Erin. Want to see your name here too? Support starts at just $1.50 US a month, and you can even gift memberships. And of course, a massive welcome to our newest members: NYTMR, Chris Wright, C&K Adventuring, Andy Pyatt, Gerald Eden, Kurlakos, Chip Chandler, Robert Nelson, 00 Critical, Tom Fagden, Barry 2379, Mike Coffeen, James River, Eric Knack, Hans Rose, DW, Meryl Fratkin, Kristen Rasmussen, MX Minivar Vargas, Stephen Nichols, Panther Legion, Kitsa Prida, Bark Eater J, Jeff Good, Conrad Zalance, Frank Snyder, Jeffrey Smith, Tony Roberts, Matthew Frake, Jacqueline Cockburn, Fritz Coker, Trans Vegan Cyclist, Jade Diaz, Laura Shear Clark, Everett Garnett, Peter Broadwell, Jerry, Jeremy Redmond, Patrick Matthias, Pamela Not Pam, Dave Fry, Mark Anderson, Tal Hobson, C. Daniel Tideman, Martin May, Fee, Donovan, Date Downs, Matthew Buckar, Zach C., Taraki, Kathy Windandy, Alex, Patricia Connor, Lindy Melendez, Dameron Khan, Gary Robotham, Dave Miles, Tina Ponish, Mark Kruger, and Tyler Walker. Thank you all for joining in the last month. You're helping us hit our goal of growing Patreon support by 20 to 40% this autumn. Prefer a one-off contribution? We've got Ko-fi, Bitcoin, and a PO box, our swag store, and even an Amazon affiliate link, so your money helps us, not Jeff Bezos. We post new videos every few days on the main channel, plus extras on Transport Evolved Take 2. And since YouTube comments aren't safe for us anymore, the best way to chat is through Patreon, Mastodon, Blue Sky, or our website. If you want more, the algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we'd love you to check this one out too. Be awesome, be kind, be intentional, and never forget to resist. Keep evolving.